We are building the laptop store project from the Vybyte Python curriculum available at www.vybyte.in. Previously, we built the inventory of laptops of our shop. Now it's time for us to obtain the choice that the user has. Now, we really do not want to display all the models to the customer at once because, we did, for example, 30 models. It could be very confusing. Instead, what typically happens, let's say on a website of this sort or in a virtual store, basically we request the customer to tell what is it that they're looking for. For example, some customers are willing to purchase only a specific brand. Some other wants, let's say, a certain amount of RAM or say a computing speed. Some may be very particular about the screen size, or many may be saying that, okay, look, whatever it is, it should be, say, bounded by a certain price, right? So, basically, lots and lots of requirements can come in, and some of these requirements could be quite involved. For example, say of this brand, minimum this screen size, and so on. So multiple conditions put in. We are going to do a rather simplified version of this. But the important point to understand is that, basically the choices that the person makes are on the same metrics for which we have created the laptops, which means that, for example, people are going to make a choice on the brand, the model, let's say the CPU, the price, and so on. Now, those are exactly the same, let's say, metrics or the keys on which those laptop dictionaries have been. What that means is that we can also capture the user choice as a dictionary generated from the same set of keys for which we generated the laptop. So in fact, what we'll do is very simple. We just say, okay, look, for KK in spec, remember this is a list. So when I say for KK in choice, basically I'm going to go through each one of these. So I'm just going to say, okay, look, user choice KK, which is to populate the dictionary, is given by, let's say, an input. So user supplies back. So we can just run this, and see how it goes. So I come back here. I just say, for example, let's put a small comment. Let's say getting users say choice. Now, in order to obtain the user choice, like I said, we will just create a new dictionary here, say called user choice, and I say, well, that is a dictionary. DICT dot from keys and the same keys as the laptop itself, which makes sense. So now, in order to get the user's choice, I run a for loop. I just say, well, for KK in specs, remember specs being a list, KK will take on values, brand, let's say price, CPU, and so on and so forth. And I just go and use the same string to populate the dictionary. So I just go and say user choice, for example, KK is given by input. Now remember, input can take only one string. So just have to be a little bit careful for that. I just say any let's say preference for say so use a plus here. This is going to be like a join apple banana because KK is a string. First one is a string, and I can just put, let's say, enter say none for no preference. So if I don't have any strong preference, I can just put a none over there, and I can then put, let's say, close this bracket, and I can then put, let's say, a \n. Actually, I can just do that right here, say this way. Yeah. So now this is my input statement. Now clearly you can see that this is a for loop. It will run for as many times as there are items in this list specs. Basically, for every spec, I will get the user to tell me what is it that the user is looking for. We will see this working. Basically, so when I start this code, it tells me, okay, tell me any preference of the brand. So for example, I could give W Dell, let's say, I want a W Dell laptop, say no preference for model, no preference for a speed, say CPU or speed. I might say, okay, look, I need 2 GB of RAM. Well, none preference for storage. Well, maybe none. And I want to give a certain price preference, let's say. So maybe let's say INR, say 30,000. That's my price preference. Now, if I were to finish this, now this gets over because remember, it went through each of those specs. And if I look at the user choice dictionary, that has been populated based on what the user provided. So for example, user had a preference for, let's say, the brand, which was W Dell. for say RAM and for say the price. For everything else, user said none, and that's why we just populated a none over here, and that happened because of this line in the code. Clearly, this is very simplistic, but you get the idea that this dictionary user choice in fact captures what the user has indicated as his or her choice. We will use this for further processing. We will use this to find out laptops that then meet this choice. Before I wrap this up, however, let me just highlight that this mechanism of choice that we are collecting is actually quite basic, and I can think of at least two improvements. Number one, presently we are expecting user to just tell us one value for every parameter. In reality, the user's choices may be more involved because, for example, somebody might say, look, I need at least 2 GB of RAM. Now, what that does is that this user is okay with 2 GB, 4 GB, and 8 GB perhaps, right? Whereas in our case, we're just saying, okay, tell me what GB of RAM you need. Yeah? Similarly, a lot of people might say, look, my price should be at most, say, 30,000 rupees. That's like saying, okay, look, I'm okay with 20,000, I'm okay with 30,000, but I'm not okay with 40,000. Or people might say, look, I'm okay with either WHP or WDEL, both are fine. But we are not doing any of those. We are just expecting a simple, yes or no type answer that, okay, tell me what brand you want, tell me what RAM you want. And so obviously, this can be done. But what that means is that, we will have to improve the way we create our query, which will be used to sort of find out the laptops that meet this. Extremely interesting idea to, let's say, think of enhancement on these lines. The next improvement that I see very clearly is that our process of asking is quite repetitive, because the user may just put none for several choices. Now, clearly, that's a fair, observation as well. You can improve this, by improving the question. So you can just ask, okay, do you have any preference? If the user says none, then automatically everything becomes none. Or the way you can also do this is you can ask the user to tell, okay, which of these do you have a preference in? So the user says, for example, let's say I have a preference for brand and that's about all. So you can just say which brand do you want and everything else can be taken as well. So clearly this process can be improved. In fact, this can also be improved by creating a graphical user interface using maybe Tkinter, to sort of capture users' information. And that will be pretty cool. But that's all for enhancements, right? For now, it's fine. Our user choice has been captured. We will move forward. I hope you're finding this journey quite interesting, where we are learning Python, but at the same time, we are also thinking on real life problems, and seeing how realistic we can get and how we can enhance it to become more and more interesting. If this is the way you would like to learn Python, look at our website, www.ybyte.in, because that is how we learn Python. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.